Hi there, and welcome to the third set of lectures in this module. So I want to try and finish off what I was talking about last week with yourselves, which was looking at the basic theories and paradigms that frame this module. So I didn't quite get finished last week what I'd hoped. I'd hoped I would have them all covered last week and we could move on then to our discussion around youth work. But I have a couple more just to finish. I hope you're still following me in regard to those theories, and hopefully the readings helped thrash them out a little bit more. If you've any questions anyway, sure, we'll have the web tutorial anyway, so hopefully that'll be a bit more helpful if there is any. So I am just going to, like I said, finish looking at the theories which frame this module. So last week, okay, just to recap, just to get our heads back into it and get my head back into it, I suppose, we looked at how do we think, we asked how do we think about our practice and how can we make sense of it, and we talked about the past couple of weeks, I suppose, we've been looking at the philosophy of social science. We've been looking at the foundations from where, social science came from, as opposed to the natural sciences. How looking at the philosophy of the social sciences and looking at the social sciences give some sort of framework to how we talk about society, talk about things that we do in society, and therefore help us ask questions and create understandings and form our understandings, particularly around things like youth work, okay? So we looked at functionalism last week initially, which, just to recap, just to look at again, looks at the whole elements of society. It's a macro way of perspective of looking at society, and focuses upon things like norms, customs and traditions in society. We then moved on to conflict theory. Conflict theory is best associated then with Karl Marx, who believes that there is always who can look at society. This theory looks at society with the view that there is always conflicts. There's always conflicts happening in different areas of society. For example, with resources and power. That resources and power, there's never an even distribution of resources and power in society. And this causes then there's always this sort of disjointedness within society amongst different groups because of this disjointed allocation of resources and power in society. So that's what conflict theory can be used to look at society. Symbolic interactionism then, we said, is more about how we create understandings and create meanings, and how institutions create meanings and different entities in society create meanings through interaction. So meanings evolve through the interaction that people or entities or structures or different things have within society with each other. So through the interaction, meanings and ideas evolve from that. Feminist theory then, you might remember, is what it says on the tin, to an extent that it's a way of looking at society in regard to how women are positioned in society, how they're positioned within societies, how they're positioned within groups, how different people are positioned due to gender, and also, it can look at, an example would be looking at a question that could be posed, which could be feminist theory could be used to look at, is, why are so many politicians male as opposed to female? So it could be you could use feminist theory to pose that question and look at that question in a little bit more depth. Radical humanist theory then, this was the one that I felt I probably speeded a little bit through. So I'm going to have a look at it again in this lecture. So just to recap, radicalist humanist paradigm, okay, so a way of looking at society and our world through a radical humanist paradigm. So I broke it down here as I did last time. So when you're talking about humanist, you're talking about humanism, okay? And this is a philosophical stance, so philosophical positioning. So humanism, and some of you might be aware of, so humanism, when we're talking about humanism, we're focusing on the values and ethics of people as individuals and as a collective, okay? It emphasizes the importance of critical thinking and evidence as opposed to that which comes from a particular set of beliefs or dogma. So emphasizes more so, what are humans, a set of beliefs and values within humans, and how we think you should live as humans, okay? As opposed to how something like it says, a set of beliefs, a dogma, religion imposes upon us. So it focuses more on how we feel as humans we should be living. What are our ingrained values? What are the values that we come forth with, that maybe are formed when we're children, that are formed when we're teenagers? What are those values? What do we decide as humans are good values for us to live by, okay? Rather than values that we live by that are imposed upon us, that we are told that we should be living by. So radical then, so like the word radical proposes a change, but a change generally emphasizes quite an immediate change, an overhaul of things. So radicalist humanism, so it's not just a change bit by bit, but it's actually, we need to change everything from top to bottom, from bottom to top, okay? So it looks at structures and systems of injustice in society. It looks to inclusiveness, believing that people are excluded, collaborations, believing that people don't work together, that they're working as individuals. It encourages social justice and critical thinking as to why and how things are the way they are in society, and how can they change, more importantly, be changed. So, you could be looking at society through a feminist lens, and this could be framed within a radical humanist paradigm. So we're looking at, okay, women aren't being included in political structures in society. Why is that? What's happening that men are there? And then within a radicalist humanist paradigm, it could be, okay, we need to change everything from the structures to how people are thinking, to how people are doing, in order for a change to be made here and women to be included in politics and society, okay? So within that then, like we just mentioned, within that paradigm can often be something called critical social theory. So critical social theory is a school of thought with its primary objective is the improvement of the human condition. So like we said, radical humanist paradigm looks to overhaul things, looks to recreate things, move things along. And when you're talking about critical social theory, this is the school of thought. So this can be often, like I said, placed within this radical humanist paradigm. So how can we improve things that are there, okay? How can we improve the human condition? So as you can see, some of the founders of critical social theory are Horkheimer, Adorno, Fromm and Marcuse, okay, which you can look into further if you so wish. It focuses on general theoretical problems, okay, so as well as specific investigations of concrete problems of contemporary social organization, okay? So what do we need to look at what do we need to re-engage with in order to really look at how it's happening? And maybe, things worked at one time in one particular context, but now that we've moved on, do they still work? And if not, why? The approach was to break with traditional hypothetical deductive methods. So when you're talking about hypothetical deductive methods, those would be methods that, let's break things down, and so it would be in the natural sciences. So like it says, which are oriented towards the preservation and gradual reformation of the status quo. So let's look at what is there, and let's try and break it down in order to understand it and rebuild it then to keep using it. Whereas critical social theory was intended to be a radically different approach, which would take into account the human construction of social forms of life and the possibility of their recreation. So that it could be, critical social theory could look at something, break it down and maybe not use it again. So maybe think about how, how can something else be in place? How it could be that you rebuild, but it could also be that you also create something radically different for society. So the aim of critical social theory is to look at society as not to accept that society and reality are to be shaped and accepted based on what is there. So think about your ontological and your epistemological here and laws of probability, but also on what men, it was just men, that's what I put down there, it was just men included at the time, could and wish to make of it, okay? So it's not just thinking about the way things are and the way they can be shaped based on what we have, based on the structure. So again, go back to politics. So how can we use politics to shape society, okay? What's happening in society, and how can we use politics in a different way, but also, how do we want it? What do we actually want? So you can talk about politics shaping society, but also critical social theory asks, well, what do we want, and helps us inform ourselves in order to make a decision in regard to how we're using politics and whether politics is the best way to shape the things that we need shaping, okay? I hope this is all making sense. Hopefully it will when you look at some of the clips as well. So critical social education then, it's an extension of this critical social theory, and this is about educating about critical thinking in society so that we can think about society in a critical way, that we can look at what is there, what isn't there, what needs to be there, but we do it in an educated way, that we do it in an informed way. Critical thinking is not accepting what is in front of us, okay? It looks at, how can we think about changes in society? How can we think about real life situations critically? And its focus, the focus of critical social education is on eliminating causes of inequality. And this is what Paulo Freire tried to do with his practice. He used critical social education, for example, using drama and games to get people to think about what was happening in their country, what was happening in their situation. And I know Paul will refer to Paulo Freire as well. And some of you might be conscious or aware of Paulo Freire and his teachings on critical social education, okay? So the job now is to use these theories and paradigms to support our understanding of youth work better. And what I want you to do now is just have a look at it's a 2-minute clip that I put in, 2-3-minute clip that I put in around critical social education. Hopefully this will sum up what I've been talking about in regard to critical social education, critical social theory. It is very cheesy, I apologise, but hopefully it'll break down a little bit of what I've been talking about and help you to think about it a little bit more. Okay, thanks.